Hello, let's check the Sociology optional paper of Civil Service Examination 2025. We will start with paper 1. Paper 1, the first question is the compulsory question which consists of 5 sub-questions. So, the first question in that, question number 1A is about sociology and common sense. So, how sociology and common sense are connected, that is the crux of the question, and this is a direct question from the first chapter of paper 1 and easy to write. The second question is about the relationship between sociology and history. So, they particularly emphasize on similarities and differences and area of study and methodology. Again a direct question. People would have expected it from the paper 1, the chapter 1 of paper 1. The third question, the 1C is what is a variable in social research and what are the different types. Variable again is a direct topic from research methodology, the chapter 3. So, direct question. Next question is from Robert Merton from chapter 4. So, as many times in the past, here also there is an applied question you see. Can Merton's reference group theory be relevant in understanding identity making in digital world? So, reference group is all about, you imitating somebody in order to get into that particular group or a position. So, in social media it's very much possible. You need a little bit of time to frame this one, but since it's a compulsory question, you have to write it also. But it's not too difficult, I would say, but you may need a little bit of extra time to frame the questions using the relevant examples. The last one from question 1 is the social stratification theory gender blind? So, are we considering the gender angle when it comes to social stratification? So, we have to compare the existing system of stratification and how the gender is being acknowledged. This is again directly from the syllabus because social stratification chapter actually deals with gender as a dimension of stratification. So, I would say that all the 5 questions in section A, these compulsory questions are quite okay in the sense it is not too difficult to answer. Now, let's move on to the other questions. Question number 2. Question number 2, the first question is what is positivism and critically analyze the merger argument against it. Again a very direct question, chapter 2 of paper 1, positivism and its critics. It's directly taken from the syllabus and it's very easy and direct to write. Question number 2b, highlight the main features of historical materialism as propounded by Marx. How far is the theory relevant in understanding contemporary societies? So, the Marxian theory of historical materialism and its application in the present world. So, first part is easy, direct, but the second part, of course, you have to think about how we can say economy as a major determinant of social stratification in the present society. So, you have to bring in the other important factors as well and of course a little bit of critical analysis of the historical materialism. If you know historical materialism, you can actually apply that, but a little bit of thinking when you bring in the contemporary relevance and using real examples, especially in a globalized world, how far this economic angle is relevant. That's what you have to concentrate. The third one, question number 2C is, what do you mean by reliability? Discuss the importance of reliability in social science research. Directly taken from the research methodology and easy to write. So, question 2 is actually good. All the 3 questions are easy to tackle. Move on to question number 3. 3A, compare capability deprivation approach with that of social capital deprivation in understanding chronic poverty. So, these are very specific concepts. So, of course, we do study in the social stratification chapter about poverty and deprivation, but these two concepts are very, very specific, that is capability deprivation approach and social capital deprivation. So, if you just cover a basic note or a book, you might have skipped this specific ones. So, unless you are sure about it, you actually may not be able to write this one. Then 3b is, are pressure groups a threat or a necessary elements of democracy? Explain with suitable illustrations. Pressure groups, of course, we study in both paper 1 and paper 2. So, it will be, much more easy to tackle this question. Then question number 3c is, what is hypothesis? Critically evaluate the significance of hypothesis in social research. Direct question, easy to write. So question number 3 I would say is this first one. 3a is a bit more specific. So you need specific information to tackle that one. So if you are not sure about that, you better avoid it. Moving on to question number 4 of section A. 4a, the first question in the question number 4 is, give an account of the recent trends of marriage in the Indian context. How are these different from traditional practices? Direct question, you need to bring in examples from paper 2 as well to write this one. This is an expected question, of course. 4b is, what would you identify as the similarities and differences in the allied theories of Mosca, Michels and Pareto? So all the allied theories this is from the chapter 7 of power, and allied theories we study them all. So what you need to do is a comparison of Pareto's circulation of allied, Mosca's inputs and Michels' iron law of oligarchy. You have to compare the three. Direct question, easy question. Then 4c, critically analyze the sociological significance of informal sector in the economy of developing societies. From the chapter 6, work and economic life, and the importance of informal sector. Not too difficult this one, because again it is directly mentioned in the syllabus. So section A altogether, if you ask me, except for that question 3a which talks about that specific concept of capabilities, all the other 3 questions are somewhat easy to attempt. Moving on to section B, question 5, which is a compulsory question. First one is, in what way is the scope of sociology unique? Scope of sociology is something which we study in the initial chapters. So, in what way it is unique? So, let's not worry too much about that unique part. Let's talk about the scope of sociology specifically. That's the question number 1. In the question number A in the question number 5 actually, the first question in the compulsory section of section B. Next one, 5b, does the structural functionalist perspective on social stratification promote a status quo? Give reason to your answer. So again, you need to write the Davis and Moore's theory of social stratification. You can mention Parsons' inputs on social stratification, and both combining these two, you get a perfect answer on functionalist perspective, and of course you write Melvin Tumin's criticism. That completes the answer. So easy one. 5c, do you think that the formal workspace are free of gender bias? Argue your answer. So this is, you have to combine the work and economic life chapters, formal structure, and you have to bring in the gender bias. A little bit of thinking, because gender technically comes in the family chapter we studied. But when we study the recent trends in the work and economic life, of course the gender angle is being covered. So a little bit of time to frame that question, but again it's answerable. 5d, how does Weber's Westerhand address the objectivity-subjectivity debate in sociology? Something again which we study in the thinkers chapter, the Weber's Westerhand approach of the subjective interpretation and its important, and the element of objectivity. All these things, again a little bit of time to frame your answer, but you can actually write it. To what extent can education and skill development be an agent of social change? Direct question, this one, the last, that is the 5E question. Direct question where we study how education can help in social change. So, fine. So, section B, the compulsory question number 5. Some questions, the gender bias and formal workplace and versation in the objective subjective, a little bit of framing need to happen. Otherwise, all the 5 questions are not very troublesome. Moving on, question number 6. Question number 6. What is science? Do you think that the methods used in natural science can be applied to sociology? Give reasons for your answers. So, again the methodology, in fact this is a kind of repetition because already we asked about positivism. So, using natural science method is the crux of the positivism. So, this is kind of a repetition. So, you need to define science and natural science methods and how far it can be used. You can mention Comte and Durkheim, and then you can bring what are the limitations. So, a complete answer, not very difficult at all, because we cover this entirely in the initial chapters. So, that is 6A for you. 6B, what do you understand by gender-based domestic division of labor? Is it undergoing a change in the wake of increasing participation of women in formal employment? Something from the family chapter, I would say, but again it is combined with the elements from women and work. So, you would have, if you have covered your syllabus properly, you would have obviously covered this chapter as well. So, I would say that this is also not too difficult to come up with. Make sure that you be specific when you bring examples here. 6C, how can you assess the significance of social movements in the digital era? Social movements from the chapter 7, the power and politics chapter. So, social movements in the digital era. Of course, the recent trends in social movements and other things, how the social movements can be mobilized using the digital media, all those things you have to write. So, question 6 is also fine, I would say. Moving on to question number 7. What is sampling in the context of social research? Discuss different forms of sampling with their relative advantages and disadvantages. Direct question, easy to write from the research methodology chapter. 7B, how do theories of Max Weber and Durkheim differ in understanding religion? So, you have to compare Durkheim's elementary forms of religious life, sacred and profane, to Weber's theory of Protestant ethics. So, if you studied properly, you do a comparison between the two. Then 7C, what is the nature of relationship between science and religion in modern society? Direct question from the chapter 8, religion. So, if you have covered your syllabus, it will be easy to write. What are the areas of which are complementing, what are the areas of contradiction and conflict? So, not a difficult question at all. So, all the questions in 7 is also fine. Now, the last one, question number 8. 8A, what do you understand by sustainable development? Discuss the elements of sustainable development as proposed in the UNDP Sustainable Development Goals. So, from the, this again, you can get inputs from multiple chapters. You can get a little bit from the economy chapter and a lot from the social change chapter. So, sustainable development goals, if you studied your GS properly, you already know a lot of things. So, you have to slightly bring it in here. Then 8B, how do civil society organizations such as NGOs and self-help groups contribute in bringing down or provide leverage for grassroots level social change? Direct question, we actually study their impact in chapter 7. So, you can try that. And the last one, 8C, is in what way does queer kinship challenge the traditional kinship system? Substantiate by giving illustrations. So, in the family chapter, when we study the kinship, the queer communities and the way the new bondings are happening, how it affects the traditional kinship system? That's your question. But technically I would say that all the questions in this eighth question, all the sub questions are slightly more difficult, and you may need a little bit more thinking and planning in that. Apart from that, from section A, that one question which was a bit too specific, the question number 3A, and this 8 one where all the questions are a bit more, you need to put a bit more effort. All the other questions are manageable. A lot of weightage have been given to the first 3 chapters of basics and research methodology, and the gender angle. We have a question on queer thing, we have a question on gender and work, couple of questions. Then we have a couple of questions on pressure groups and civil society organizations. So certain areas have given a little bit more emphasis than normal. So overall, I would say this paper is not very difficult for somebody who has done their homework properly. So let's move on to paper 2 of sociology. Paper 2, question number 1A. Textual perspective is important in understanding of Indian social system. So, how the texts, the books and things are important in understanding Indian social system. So, this is something which we study in the basic initial chapters. How that texts and books are important in giving us idea about, especially G.S. Gurye and all are into this kind of things. So, that's kind of a direct question. 1B, justify that the Indian traditions are modernizing. Also discuss the contributing factors. So, tradition and modernity from the initial chapters. We have our chapter 2, the modernization of Indian tradition is in detail discussed in there. So, direct question, easy one. 1C, according to you, which social reform movement has played the most effective role in uplifting the status of women? Again, we study them in chapter 2 of paper 2. So, which social reform movement? So, you have to pick one. So, Brahma Samaj or Jyotiba Phule's movement or anything of that sort where you have your proper arguments. 1D, how did colonial policies for the tribes affected their socio-economic conditions? Again, a direct question from the tribal chapter, colonial policies and tribals, which we study in detail. 1E, how would you appropriate to characterize G.S. Gurye as a practitioner of theoretical pluralism? So, again G.S. Gurye we study in our initial chapters itself. So, that's also something which you can easily write. So, the compulsory questions are kind of not too difficult. Moving on from section A, questions 2A. Do you think that in a society like India, orthogenetic changes take place through differentiation? Do you observe continuities in the orthogenetic process? So, that from the initial chapters itself, how the changes and what are the factors, this orthogenetic changes. So, that is there, the question number 2A. So, make sure that you write specific answer for this rather than keeping it too generic. 2B, agrarian class structure has been undergoing changes due to modern forces. Direct question, expected question. Changes in the agrarian sector. 2C, how same-sex marriage are responsible for population dynamics in India. So, that's an interesting thing. The same-sex marriage, of course, we study it as a recent trend, and how the overall population dynamics is changing because of that. So, what are the general consequences with special emphasis to the demographic situation? You have to write that. Then the next question, you have actually, it's written as 2D, like you have one more question over there. So, we could say that this one, it's written 2D. What do you mean by nation building? What is the role of religion in nation building? So, nation building, we studied nation as a concept and how the nationalism is being built, and what is the role of religion. So, there are nations which is solely based on religious identities, and there are nations which is more on the civic identities. So, you have to compare and write the importance of religion in this regard. Question 3a. Do you think that new economic reforms of British rule have disrupted the old economic system of India? More historical, but we directly study the impact of colonial rule. So, write it with the proper examples. 3b. Describe the main features of Indian new middle class. How is it different from the old middle class? Direct question from the class chapter about Indian middle class, so easy to write. So here the question 3 has only 2 parts and question 2 has actually 4 parts. Moving on, question number 4a. Who is said to be the pioneer of village studies in India? Illustratively describe contributions of some Indian sociologists on village studies. Very easy question. There is a direct mention of that. You can quote any number of people. There are a lot of people who study different aspects of Indian village. There are Indian and Western thinkers ahead, in that. So, pick anyone and do your, make your answer. That is 4a. Then 4b. Industrial class structure is a function of social structure of Indian society. From the urban and industrial chapter, direct question I would say. The industrial class structure and Indian social structure. So, if you have revised that part, you can attempt this one. It's actually a direct one. Question number 4c. What is kinship? Briefly explain G.P. Murdoch's contribution to the study of kinship system. Direct question. When we study kinship, we do study G.P. Murdoch. So, you can attempt that one. I would say all the questions in section A are fine. So, particularly the the question 3 with 2 parts are much more easy, but all the questions are actually attemptable if you finished your revision properly. Not too difficult, I would say. Moving on to section B. Section B, we start with the compulsory questions. 5a. The transfer of land from cultivating to the non-cultivating owners is bringing about transformation in Indian society. So that land reform policies, how from the cultivating people, again the non-cultivating owners, sometimes we do refer to them as absentee landlords. So how it affects the overall system. So that is your first question. We do study about that directly in both the chapters of related to rural sociology. So not too difficult. 5b. Bring out various factors responsible for degeneration of village industries. Direct question. From the British period onwards, you have to do a historical analysis of the decline of village industries here. 5c. Discuss the social basis of political mobilization in independent India. Has some changes occurred in the last 60 to 70 years? So, political mobilization in India, a historical overview. So, you have to write all the observations of thinkers like Rajni Kothari in this, and of course the recent trends. So, something from the political development chapter. So, that is question number 5c. Then 5d. What are the major problems faced by the labour migrants while working in informal sector? Informal sector and labour migration. Of course, with the recent examples, you can write that. 5e. Do you think that law has been able to abolish child labour? So, child labour and law, you have to do a critical analysis of that. How we have laws and how, what are the, shortcomings and things need to be improved. That is 5e. So, compulsory questions are not very easy, but at the same time, not something that you can completely, something which is completely difficult either. Moderate or moderate to slightly difficult. That's how I would like to put it. The compulsory questions from section B. Moving on, question number 6A. In what respects have the constitutional provisions changed the socio-economic and political conditions of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes? So, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, the constitutional provisions. So, if you studied your GS also, you can bring in a lot of inputs from there, and of course, you could add the sociological studies. 6B, discuss the trend of urbanization in India. Do you think that industrialization is the only precondition of urbanization? Direct question, the reasons of urbanization you have to bring in. How industrialization is one reason, but what are the other reasons also you can bring in. Direct question. 6C, which measure would you suggest for preventing caste conflicts in India? So, the solution for caste conflicts you have to write for this one. 6C. Question number 7A. What are the private and public network and support system operative in Indian society for the aged? Suggest measures to curb down the challenges before caregivers of the aged. So, aging is a thing which we study in the population chapter. So, we have to write about the support system we have for old age thing. Of course, you have to do a critical analysis of that. 7B. Educational development is the only panacea for country's all ills and evils. So, critically examine with reference to National Education Policy 2020. So, education and social change, we already seen it in paper 1 as well. So, here also in light of the educational policy, you have to analyze how far education is important in dealing with all the social problems of India. So, that is 7B. Moving on, we have the last question, question number 8 here. 8A. How Dalit movements in India have facilitated their identity formation? Direct question. We study it in multiple chapters. So, easy to write. 8B. Is it possible to have sustainable development in India? Cite major environmental issues and suggest a few measures to achieve the sustainability. So, sustainability is again repeated in this paper as well, and sustainable development and environmental issues, something again which is expected. We do study about this in multiple chapters. 8C. Do you think that forced displacement of laborers has caused their deprivation and resultant inequalities during the recent years? Elaborate. So, displacement again is a direct topic. So, displacement of laborers in general we have to write. So, again an expected kind of a question. What are the last one, 8D. What are the Indian government schemes launched for poverty alleviation after United Nations Declaration of Sustainable Development Goals? Direct question. So, the Indian government schemes and their critical analysis and impact you have to write. So, you could see that the change in here in paper 2 is instead of all questions having 3 parts in the sections, we have 3 questions each. One have 2 questions, one have 3 questions, and one have 4 questions. So, that is one difference I could see here. And here we could see that the sustainability has been given a lot of importance in all the questions. In lot of questions it has been kind of repeated. So, paper 2 I would say that certain areas has been given a little bit more emphasis, but overall the paper I would say is moderate. So, I hope all of you have written a good optional, and all the best for all of you, and thank you for watching.